Calls first meeting to order of the Public Works Committee. Let's see, Ms. Kujar and see, and my yeah. I'm sorry. Looking, I still. Oh, is that okay? Is that the text we got? Okay. I had a phone number. I didn't have a name on it. Okay. So today, then it'll just be myself and Michael Reynolds. Call this meeting to order. It is January 24th, and it is 6:02 p.m. First, I'll open things up to public comment. Any public out there? No. With that, move on to reading and approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for December 14th.
Without a second person, do I second? And I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Okay. Okay. Now, reports and communications from city officers. We'll start, I guess, looks like Mr. Freeman.
Financially, we're ahead of where we need to be. We're just trying to get through the last of the double sanitation from the holiday. And this week, we're going to be going ahead and getting all the Christmas decorations down. That's about it.
Is that usually first week of January after the holidays?
Yeah.
So somebody asked me that, and I just didn't have an answer for you. So I appreciate that. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Is your baseball field maintenance plan update?
Oh, sure. If you remember, Mr. Reynolds asked for a maintenance program. So I sat down with the head of the Parks Department and kind of prioritized where things needed to be and how it needed to be ordered. I plan to provide a full report like I always do for everything. Right now, it's really more in like a bullet list format where we have some soil tests, coming up from Clemson University is going to help us with that to figure out pH, nutrients, deficiencies. Carolina Turf's coming out this week to get us some infield dirt on all of our fields. That should address not only the look of the fields, but also the lips as it goes from the infield to the outfield. We have a schedule now set up for top dressing and aeration, fertilization, and then, as far as general maintenance, allocating a certain number of staff on a weekly rotation to mandate what they're supposed to do, rather than just kind of when we get time, we'll get over there. It's now going to be a priority. And then we also identified some needs, which we'll be purchasing within what we already have budgeted out there. So we've got a plan moving forward, and our intentions is to make those things look top notch.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Okay. We'll move on to unfinished business, which there is no unfinished business. Move on to new business. And the Public Works Facility Improvement. Mr. Freeman, are you going to discuss this, or?
Okay.
Either way.
So, Mr. Freeman, members of the committee, what you have before you is a request for approval for a construction manager at risk to provide construction services for the renovations to the Public Works building on the Dugal Court. Council allocated approximately $200,000 in the CIP budget to move the fleet operations over from Jenkins Street to the Dugal Court. And so we put out a bid for a construction manager to manage that for us. We had about 10 firms respond to that proposal or the solicitation for request for qualifications. They were evaluated by evaluation teams, staff members, and Sealy Construction. was recommended as the, most responsible bidder to the proposal. So that's what's before you now.
So I'm clear on this. This basically, I understand the upgrade we're trying to do. We don't have like a final plan and design. This is us to work with them to go through the process, right?
Exactly.
This is the beginning.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make sure I'm clear on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that was actually part of what, as I'm looking at this project, looking at the RFQs and through the paperwork and stuff like that is well and good. But I think in my mind, what I'd like to see is having a little bit more clarity, or have the evaluation committee, I won't say interview, but maybe that's the best terminology, the top 3 candidates, strictly because, you know, it's a project we're going to work hand in hand with. We don't know all the fine details right now. There may be, candidate 2 or 3 may present themselves better through an interview process. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Matt?
We can go in either direction.
This is just to manage the project, correct?
Manage the project. They will be responsible for the entire thing. Right now, with the staff we have and the amount of work that we're doing, we don't have a person that can be dedicated to this project. So this would involve, it's a little bit more hands-on than just saying, hey, we're gonna put a garage bay into the credit work. So this group will manage the entire thing. It's an at-risk job, so they will set a budget not to exceed. We will work with them on the budgeted amount that we have in our CIP, and bring back to council the final plan for approval and to move forward. So we could come back and ask those folks to be interviewed by the evaluation team or by the committee or by council.
I guess I'm gonna go, I'm familiar with Sealy and some of those just by name, no personal connection. If this is just primarily a project management piece, so basically they'd be subcontracting a project manager to manage all the scope of the project. And that's basically the scope of what we're talking about. We're not talking about that 200,000, but that's not included construction. Right?
No, that's everything.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually a pretty good price. What has to be done?
Now, keep in mind, they can come back and say, in order for what you want, it may be more, or it may be less. At that time, a decision has to be made.
Okay, so but would there be a full-time person on here or at the site, or how are they managing it?
The Matt Cleveland would be their contact person for the project. But they would manage any type of contractors they would need, the entire process. This is an arrangement between the city and them to manage the process. This is the amount that it will not exceed the city's cost.
Mr. Matt, do you know the top 3 candidates? Or do you remember?
Well, yeah, I do.
Am I putting you on the spot?
No,
I don't mind.
you had seated construction, Nathan and spatulas, spreadings. Those are the top 3. Essentially, talking with the committee, it boiled down to the amount of the type of projects that city construction has done. They're more in line with the scope of this project. They've done a lot of work in the city of Greenville, city of Centralville, with the type of budget that we have for this project. Some of the other companies, they're large companies, they deal with projects that are much bigger in scope than this. This is essentially moving our fleet operations to the public facility. So we're talking about a wall and a bay door and moving the hydraulic lift. That's really simple, but it's more complex than that because it will be upfitting the existing building. So there are some requirements we have, building codes wise that we have to meet.
Well, we're not contractors, so we don't need to get into contracting.
In my personal opinion is if the team feels happy, I mean, this is I don't want us to overthink this. It is a huge scope. Sealy, we very well know. So I don't think, I don't personally see a need necessarily to go back and interview everyone because it could cause a big delay. I think you want to get this done quickly, correct?
Yes, but it's a process, and it's budgeted for this fiscal
you have discussions with all three of these folks?
No, we put out a bid, they submitted the proposals, and then the proposals were ranked based on the scope of work that was listed in that RFQ, request for qualifications. So they were ranked by, 3 members of staff. And, based on their pricing, based on their approach to the project, based on their recommendations that they had from other work they had done, and so they were all ranked.
And I think, and this is future reference, I think for us, for me particularly, it would be helpful to have, I don't want to change, but I love what you're doing with the evaluation committee. I think that's where I really want to keep us out of it. But how we're coming up with, hey, this is who we're suggesting, this is why. That would help me as I rank them, as I'm flipping through 10 RFQs. You know, they all look similar. Some of them you can clearly see are better or worse, but so your evaluation committee's process would help me, whether it be just a spreadsheet, you know, anything like that. Just future reference, and that's not dealing with this particular, but
I agree with that. Because like,
I think
we don't know the criteria. We're assuming because the criteria was followed and, you know, the best interests were looked after. It'd be nice to know what those are. Mr. Reynolds, what is your thoughts currently?
Mr. Chairman, I'll follow your lead there.
If they were to have a conversation and bring this up next month, we'll just put us behind it all scheduled. Would not, okay. And with that, if we could just have a list of, you know, the reasons why, you know, quick conversations with those three, make sure we talk to somebody with them, feel comfortable. I hate to second guess on this, but since we have the time, and it would make us feel a little better if we just do that criteria.
Okay, so do you want to set up an interview?
Well, I mean, if nobody hears, the biggest concern I have is that nobody's actually talked to any of these folks. If we just looked at just the paperwork, if we come back and it's Mr. Fleeman or somebody else actually had a conversation, said, yeah, I feel comfortable after talking with them. Not talking with somebody on a contract, that kind of bothers me a little bit, if nobody's had a conversation.
Sure, they're going to be able to fit in our timeline. And
Yeah, I mean, just general questions, you know, you make sure they're clear on what we're after. It probably is, it's pretty basic, what we're asking for, but not to have a conversation is just a quick, because you can get a gut feel for somebody too, just by that, and that does, and I pay attention to that.
And Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't have, this is my personal opinion, if that could be done before the council meeting, I wouldn't have a problem with not slowing it down and having it on council.
If we were to have a council meeting, we were to move forward, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you would know the answer to this, or can we have we approve it, but then it goes to the council meeting and we have to pull it back at the council meeting because something happens, like we find out something we don't like. Is there a process?
You would have that option as chair.
Okay.
If you forward it for full council consideration, you'll make the presentation as Mr. Reynolds did last.
That's what I was thinking.
When we pull something back.
Maybe it's full back, okay. Well, I'd like to do that, then like it's time, if there's any problems, we can't do it in time, pull it back. Does that work for everybody? That way we're not slowing anything down too. Sorry, apologize. Okay, so do I have a motion?
Mr. Motion, I'd like to make a motion that we forward this item to full council.
All right, I'll make the second. All right. Okay, those are,
Discussion.
that's right, I knew I was missing some. Discussion, any discussion?
No, I just appreciate your willingness to take, Mr. Madden's willingness to have you guys go back and take a look and make sure everybody's on apples, oranges, oranges. We'll look forward to seeing it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm good, Mr. Madden.
All right, on that, those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll move on to the next question. Okay, and this is the, to amend the easement agreement. Who discussing this? Madam?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
so right now, the city is contracted with ACOM to construct the Swamp Rabbit Trail, on a easement provided by New Horizons, right across from Mauldin High School. So the original route for that trail is listed, provided in the agenda packet on page 16. So New Horizons earlier last month had some concerns about the route that was in the easement. So staff met on site with New Horizons and the city's contractor. And their main concern was they did not want to have the route of the trail under the transmission lines. So, came up with a different route, which is on page 13. And that route is no longer under the transmission line. It's been shared with New Horizons. They approve of the new route. And in order for us to move forward, what we're asking the council to do is to approve a resolution to amend the easement agreement with the updated route and no longer using the original.
Any cost differences or?
Yeah, and talking with the contractor, there's a potential for cost savings or with the new route, because you would no longer need to go through a wetlands area that was in the original.
That's where we had all the problems with the bridge and moving everything. Okay. So it's a win-win. It's not having walked this particular area aesthetically still looks good.
Yes, it really, the major change is just the entryway up until the curve. So it's really similar to the route. It's just not as close to the lines. It's more close. It's closer to the access road that the utility company uses, and it really gets back on your original route once it cuts through some wooded area that goes down, cuts back through. So it aesthetically, it still gives you the trail feel. It's still kind of in the woods.
Yeah.
And it ends the same place, we begin the same place, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I can prepare a motion.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send forward full council with the recommendation of approval of this resolution as well as the easement agreement in your packet for with New Horizon Electric Cooperative.
I'll second that. All right, any discussion? Discussion. All right, those in favor say aye. Aye. No, passes. All right, now move on to public comment. Do we have any public out there? We do. There's none in here. So there is no public comment. There.
Hey, wait, I want to make public comment.
Okay.
Can I make a public comment?
I suppose. Yes. All right.
Okay, well, I noticed that the street sweeping didn't make it out of committee. And I realize that doing neighborhoods would be expensive and daunting. But I'm wondering about just doing the main roads, because I've noticed there's a lot of dirt and debris that's building up along the curbs, and especially like at Butler and Main Street and that turn lane, dirt and all kinds of stuff just builds up there. To me, it doesn't look good. So I didn't know if that's something that the committee could look at, just finding out what it would cost to, or if our machine even works enough to clean those once a month.
Who will take that up? Mr. Fleeman? Quick question on that. We discussed it. I know we were looking at bringing it back. Would it be possible for for us to go see a street sweeper in action somewhere to see if, I'm not sure what Ms. Kuzniar is talking about is actually gonna be corrected with street sweep.
Well, I mean, she's identifying areas on DOT roads that she would like to see maintained better. That would be a discretion of council for us to use public funds on their roads. We could certainly look to contract it, but whatever you guys want.
Let's take a look at and have a discussion on this. You can add this to you for consideration. Okay.
Okay.
Agree with that. Ms. Kuzniar, could you tell me which of the roads there were again, which areas you were discussing specifically, so I could go take a look?
Well, so when you come out of Publix onto Butler, and you're going to make that left on the main street to come back down, to Knollwood. If you're sitting in that turn lane, you just see all kinds of dirt collected there. And maybe it's something that DOT could be made aware of and see what they can do. I mean, maybe they can hire it out once a month or whatever to come and clean these main roads that they own.
Guess we can look into it.
Well, Ms. Kuzniar, members of the committee, we can have a conversation with DOT. Their maintenance department on those particular intersections. If they can clean those,
Especially that's kind of intersection, right? So, okay, if you could kind of report back to us next month, that's fine. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
any other public comment? All right, well, with that, any committee concerns?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a concern so much, just a comment. As you know, we have a empty chair here. We want to send well wishes to Ms. King, and she was feeling under the weather. Just hope for her to recoup quickly, feel better, and stay safe. But I just want to make comment that we hope she feels better.
Concur with that. All right, good night. Move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
All right. Adjourn.
Ready.
All right, okay. So this is the Building Codes Committee meeting, Monday, January the 4th, 2021. It's approximately 6:26 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Is there any public comment? I guess I should say too that all in attendance via virtual means are myself, Councilman Matney, Councilman Black, the BDS Director, David Deerhog, and the City Administrator, Brandon Madden, is in person. No public comment? All right, let's move on to the reading and approval of minutes. What do I hear? Do I hear a motion?
Move
for approval. The minutes from, okay, for December the 14th, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the ayes have it. All right, next is reports or communications from city officers. Mr. Deerhog?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I have tonight is just to give you an update on our budget. January 1st marks the halfway point on the fiscal year, and we have 58% of our budget remaining, so we're in great shape.
All right, good news. Okay, thank you. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. And this is for an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Nolan Max Cox and located at 1140 East Butler Road by 100% petition method, and to establish a zoning classification of C1 commercial for said property. Mr. Deerhog, do you have information?
I'll just give you some brief information on this. This property is just under an acre. There's no planned development yet for this property. They're just starting to market this property, but want to go ahead and bring it into the city. And so that's what you have before you. The property is entirely surrounded by the city, so it represents a donut hole. Makes all the sense in the world for the city to annex it. It's currently occupied by a single family house, but that will go away once the commercial development of it begins.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Moving forward this to full council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Madam Chairman, David, this is the property, I think it's adjacent to, is it a dental office in there next to the vocational school?
Yes, sir.
And that's commercial, correct?
Correct.
And the car wash is almost across the street from this piece of property.
Correct.
Okay, I mean, I just want to make sure I had the bearings right, but I can see the vocational school, and I thought that was a dental office in there where there was a Cox family lived in that house that used to be on that property there, probably related to this Cox.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of moving this to full council for approval, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, ayes have it. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, is there any committee concerns? Hearing none, what do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This meeting is adjourned at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I will go ahead and call the EPD committee meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Participating remotely, obviously I am Ms. Kuznar. Mr. Broad is participating remotely. In person, we have Councilman Kraling as well as City Administrator Madden. And public comment. Is there any public that would like to comment? Hearing none. What do I hear on reading and approval of minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved as submitted. Reports, communications from city officers. Mr. Broad, how you feeling, buddy?
I am feeling much better. Thank you very much. Hated to be out, but glad I was able to get back and work a little bit today. I don't really have a report today. Our budget's in great shape. We are actually at, I'll have to pull that up and get that information to you. I'll have a better report next month, but we're in good shape. A lot of activity, as you guys well know. Development wise, we had a good Christmas at the Cultural Center this year, in spite of the fact that we've had COVID spikes. We took extraordinary precautions and we've had no major incidents at the center. So our staff did a great job over there.
That's good. Any questions for Mr. Broad? Mr. Madden, is there anything that you want to piggyback with Mr. Broad? Or are you good?
No, no report.
All right. Well, we don't have any old business, so that's going to take us to new business, which is an ordinance to extend the current agreement with Centerpoint Land LLC. This is really a straightforward piece that will match the development agreement that we have, or the infrastructure reimbursement agreement that we have with Centerpoint Land LLC to match the term of the MSIP. Van, do you want to get into it, or does that pretty well cover it? I mean, this is a pretty simple, straightforward ordinance.
Yes, sir. I'm good. I think Mr. Madden may have some comments he'd like to make, but I think it speaks for itself.
All right, Mr. Madden.
I do not have really any additional comments. This is the term of the infrastructure agreement with the term of the MSIP. So it's adding an additional 8 years. So it would, instead of ending in August of 2037, our reimbursement agreement with Centerpoint Land LLC would be pushed out to December 31st, 2045.
Okay. Do we have a motion to forward this to full council with recommendation for approval?
Make a
So
motion.
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're forwarding this to full council with a recommendation for approval. Brings us to our second public comment period. Anybody have anything? How about committee concerns? All right, hope everybody had a good Christmas. Happy New Year. What do I hear on adjournment?
Let's move. Do we adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Next up, recreation.
Thank you all.
Just a quick comment right quick, Mr. Matney. I think, Mr. Broad, you probably need to review this video that if you're considering going into TV, the camera doesn't do you justice.
Are you saying I have a radio face?
That's cold, Mayor. That's cold.
Listen, I know, and I'm struggling to breathe, and I can't believe you said that.
He doesn't feel good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that explains the sickly look. Okay.
I appreciate that. I will see you later. Oh, thank you guys.
Thanks, Van. All right, Mr. Black.
I'd like to call the Recreation Committee meeting of January the 4th to order 2021. It's approximately 6:35 thereabouts. Those in attendance virtually is myself, Dale Black, Mr. Matney. Mr. Reynolds is in person in the meeting. Mr. Kumalander is virtually, and Mr. Brandon Madden, the city administrator, is in the office council chambers or in the conference room. He is not remotely. So I think that covers everyone that's in attendance on the Recreation Committee. First thing, I got public comment. Any public comment this time? If not, we'll give you another opportunity later in this meeting. Any public comments? Hearing none, go down to the minutes of the Recreation Committee on December the 14th. What I hear on the minutes?
Maybe a quick estimate.
Second.
I've got a motion to be approved by Mr. Reynolds, second Mr. Matney. Any discussion, any additions, changes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
That's unanimous. The minutes of December the 14th are approved. Thank you. All right, so reports, communication from city officers, Recreation Director, Mr. Kumalander, you have something to add to us?
Yes, sir. I was just going to tell you that basketball started tonight. I just got home. We're doing well with that. We're taking everybody's temperature. We're playing at our both locations at the Ray Hopkins Senior Center and at the Sports Center. We're spreading the games out. So if you have a 6 o'clock game, you can't, and then we'll have a 7 o'clock game. So we're spreading the games out, Mr. Black. So we won't get a huge crowd in there. So when the 6 o'clock game leaves, we make everybody leave, and we're going to sanitize both the gyms. And then the second crowd, the 7 o'clock game comes in for their games. So the staff is doing a real good job, and we're checking everyone's temperature as well. So you'll know we're only allowing either a parent, 2 parents, or a guardian with the child when they come inside for their ball games. Kind of everybody else, we're trying to limit the numbers. Just giving you a heads up in case you get a phone call. We felt like that's the best thing we need to do, just to kind of keep the crowds down. That's all I have.
Good job, you and your staff, in doing this and organizing all this. Committee.
Yeah, thank you. I'll
Committee
pass
had
it
any
along.
questions, Mr. Kumalander? Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cumlander, you had talked a little bit about potentially trying to have some of the games, looking at possibilities of having those virtual. Have you guys made any progress with how that may look, or if it can happen, how it would work?
Yes, sir. Me and Mr. Madden have been talking, and I talked to Chris McCord today. He's kind of the IT guru for the city. And so he's coming back to work Thursday, and we're going to get with him and come up with a plan. But yes, we're going to try to get that in by the second week of when we start games. We're trying to see how the first week does with how we're doing everything, and then we're going to add that to the second week. We're going to do our best to try to have that on Facebook Live.
Thank you, Mr. Cumlander. That was a plug to you and your staff's ability to try to get past what will probably be a problem when you have to limit people coming in there. So we appreciate. I know that's not always easy for staff to tell parents or siblings or grandmas or grandpas, whatever it is that we're trying to do this to be safe. But giving that extra option is thoughtful, and I appreciate you trying to think through it before it's an issue. Thank you, Mr. Cumlander.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Anyone else have any questions, Mr. Cumlander? Mr. Madden, you got anything?
I do not, Mr. Blunt.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any unfinished business. The next thing, we'll move on to new business, and it says gym and field rentals, tournament rentals, on page 6 through 15 of your packet. Who wants to carry this, Bart or Mr. Madden, or both y'all?
I can. Mr. Madden, he can kind of help out as well. But we brought this up. We really never had any kind of rental policy. We have, and the ones that we did was kind of obsolete. And so we get a lot of calls about folks wanting to use our ball fields for tournaments. We try to tweak the prices a little bit, so it's a little bit more reasonable for folks, and having a little something that's concrete to give to folks that would like to rent the facilities. We don't have a whole lot of calls for the gym rentals, but we do have for tournament baseball. We're gradually going to get there. It's not going to take away from what our program that we're doing for the rec department, but on weekends, people do rec baseball during the week, and then they'll go do tournament ball on the weekends. And so a lot of times those fields sit there idle. And so we're trying just to create some revenue for the city as well. When those folks come in town for those tournaments, they can go by the local restaurants in town and spend some money as well. So we try to generate some revenue as well on that end. So that's kind of why it's kind of brought to y'all and get y'all's input. Any questions I can try to answer, I'll do my best.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cumlander, this coincides nicely with a lot of what we were asking Mr. Fleeman to do to try to maintain our fields in such a way that they're extreme high quality, because the competitive teams like that want to play on great fields. We've got we're fortunate in that we have that real estate. We have fields sitting there idle. If we take care of them, maintain them, we'll have those people turning left into Mauldin and coming to restaurants, and that's certainly good for every restaurant in the city limits of Mauldin, because you guys know I have a son who plays baseball, and I don't even keep count with how much money we spend on the weekends eating out, trying to go to all these tournaments. So I certainly applaud your effort in trying to make this competitive for the local tournament and tournament directors. Have you had a chance to reach out to any of the tournament directors and kind of talk about other areas where we could strengthen there to have them, to make us more attractive for them to come to us?
I have, and we've just with COVID has slowed some of that stuff down, because we didn't know really what we were going to do. And so as we get through this process, yes, we've had I've had communication with some of these tournament directors on trying to get some teams in here to play. But again, the policy, the real field rental we had before was kind of in a gray area. It was really never, it just wasn't simple, and we're trying just to simplify it. That's the reason we bring it to y'all tonight, is just so we can get those folks, give them a price and, work with them and stuff like that. So, I've been here a long time, and a lot of people say, well, why are we going to do travel ball on the weekends? Well, we'll never see, and I'd love to see it, but I don't think you'll ever see the numbers at 1,600 to 2,000 kids in the program, because 15, 20 years ago, there's wasn't a whole lot for kids to do but play baseball. There's a lot more for kids to do and more sports for them to play. And a lot of kids go and get more challenged by doing travel ball. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're not putting our programs on the shelf. We're still wanting to grow it, but we're trying to, just get the prices out there to y'all and see what y'all's thoughts are on that. To answer your question, yes, Mr. Reynolds, I've been in communication with 2 to 3 people wanting to do tournaments.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Commander.
Mr. Chairman, move we forward the recommended fee structure to full council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
So you got a motion, we move this to full council in a second. Any discussion? I've got a couple of questions, Bart and Brandon. I noticed unless I missed it in committee, the only thing it shows any staffing in here is a 15-hour staffing fee for tournaments on the gym. Now, if we're going to rent out our gyms and our fields and all this, does that include anyone from the recreation department or anyone from the city to be on duty to make sure that everything is cohered to as far as rules and regulations, or are we just going to turn it over to them with this hour-for-hour rental rate?
Well, Mr. Black, we'll have a staff member there in the gym to handle things. On the field side, I would get up with Matthew, and what a lot of these tournament directors do, Mr. Black, is they'll mark that field one time, and then they'll let them play, and if they want, it's up to the tournament guy if they want it marked, another time during the day. To answer your question, there should be a staff person from Public Works, present, and I think that's kind of built into the cost as well. And that's something that we can add as on top of what we got on here too. So if that's answering your questions, and in case there's any kind of maintenance issues outside with toilets or anything like that, is that the question you're asking, sir?
Yeah, that's the thing. Just like if you took it to gym up at the senior center, if they're going to rent it, to me, we ought to have a staff member to open the gym and someone to be on duty, whether it be a rotation of time, overtime, or volunteer for whatever we can do. But I think it ought to be a city employee on premise at all times. We have this rented to the public, just for safety reasons, nothing else. And like I say, and if something happens, say the toilet stops up or something, they got somebody there that knows who to contact and whatever. Now, and usually it's a deterrent if you have someone on duty rather than just open the doors and say, okay, here it is, we'll be back in 2 hours to shut the door for you. I mean, that's just my thoughts. I don't know about the rest of the committee, what their thoughts are.
Well, and when a tournament play like that, I would not want to leave a facility open without a staff member there.
I'm not talking about just tournaments, but I'm talking about, for any kind of rental, for gym or whatever. If somebody wanted to rent a gym for any other activities or anything of this nature.
We can certainly do that. In the past, we have not. I'm with you on that. But in the past, we haven't done that. And we haven't rented this stuff out, Mr. Black, since March, since COVID. So we don't have a whole lot of people wanting gym space. It's more of the fields. But to answer your question, yes, we would have a person there staying with it and babysitting it.
Like I said, I think years and years ago, I think it was an individual that had I was told the key to the gym and they got to go in there anytime they wanted to, which I didn't agree with, but that was overruled, but, that's no longer in play. But I just think that anytime we rent a city facility to anyone for any purpose, there ought to be a staff member there that knows what's going on, where the breakers are, where the water cutoff is and everything to, take care of the facilities if something was to arise. And then if there was to be any problem, then they can get the police, to come and handle it, because you know yourself, if you was renting a facility and there was a fight broke out or anything of that nature, and they're not going to listen to you or me because they say, well, you don't have the authority to tell me to do anything. So
You're correct.
From a safety standpoint or something like that. And like I said, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels on this or what, but that's just my food for thought.
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, we got a motion. I think Mr. Reynolds made the motion. The second of Mr. Matney, that we send this to full council, and I think we still need to do some more ironing out of the fee structure. This is good fee, and I appreciate and admire your staff for everything they've done, but seems awful a little bit of money for what they're getting out of it. I don't know, it's just me. So. But we got a motion made, and the second we send this to full council. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Okay, all right, I'll vote to send it to full council with further discussion at the council meeting, and I hope we get some more food for thought and information prior to the council meeting, but I'll go along. So it's unanimous that we send this to full council for a recommendation. I appreciate everybody's input on this. Next item we have is a second public comment. We're having a public comment this time. Mr. Crayley.
Just a question with the rentals that we just discussed. Not having the contracts here, we do have protection to say that you're using it for its intended purpose, correct? We don't have something so they can come in and do skateboarding in the gym or something like that.
That's correct.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, moving on, committee concerns. Any committee concerns? I don't have a concern, but Bart or Mr. Madden, I was contacted by a member of the Shrines earlier in the week, and I think they're trying to get together a event, and they want to come in the city. If they can get up at where the courtyard is, if it's completed, they want to rent about 50 rooms. And from what I was told by this individual, that they want to have a parade from, I think, the high school to the senior center, and they're wanting to possibly use the gym for some of their activities. Now, I don't know where they've contacted any of y'all on this matter yet or not. And I know several years ago, they did have a parade, I think, and they came down Butler Road at the Culture Center and ended at I believe the Church of God property across the street from my subdivision. So, but I was contacted by one of the Shriners, and this is for I think the Shriners Hospital. This is the one that contacted me as we're on the hospital staff, and he's on the directors and the hospital staff. So I think it's going to be a spring type event. So I don't know where anybody's contacted y'all. I know there's stuff that they have to go through if it's approved, like it did before with the police department with a parade permit and different things of this nature. So, and I don't know, Bart, do you know if like the gym, I think we at one time, maybe it's just for the culture center, that if we had a civic activity or a church or any group like that, they could use the gym one time, I think a year free of charge. Do you remember anything along those lines?
That's correct. Any kind of church group, nonprofit group, they get the facility, either a picnic shelter or any of our facilities or the gym, one time a year.
I thought we did that before. I don't know where there'd been a change in it or not, but I told this individual that he's supposed to be getting all his information together, and I think he's working with one of our business owners in Mauldin to coordinate all this, but I think it's going to be like a springtime event. So just want to give you a heads up if anything else materializes on it. And the last time they came, they caused no trouble, and it was well received, I think, by the citizens. You had some that complained about the road being shut off for about an hour, but That was the only concerns I think we'd heard from them, but I think they do a good job. So I think if they do approach us, we ought to, in my opinion, ought to try to work with them any way we can. So that's all I had on that. Any other comments or anything? All right, hearing none from the committee, what I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Got a motion made, Mr. Madney,
Second.
second, Mr. Reynolds, all in favor?
Aye.
It's meeting adjourned at approximately 6:55 PM. Thank you. Appreciate everyone's attendance.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and call this Finance and Policy Committee to order. The date is January 4th. The time is about 6:54. Members present are myself, Michael Reynolds, in the facility, and Ms. Kuznar is joining us virtually. Ms. King is not available for this meeting. She is not well, so we wish her well. First order is call to order. Second item, I'm sorry, let me see, who do we have on? We have Ms. Abercrombie or Mr. Putnam virtually.
Ms. Abercrombie is out today.
Oh, great, okay. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Mr. Madden, our city administrator, is also present. Okay, first item is going to be public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have one person. I don't know if they want to speak.
At this time, we have an opportunity for public comment for the Finance and Policy Committee. Hearing none, moving on. Reading and approval of minutes from the Finance Committee dated December 14th.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 14th, 2020 as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. I have a motion to accept the minutes for December 14th, 2020 as submitted. I'll second that motion. Any discussion, changes, or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved unanimously. Next item is going to be our reports and communications from city officers. Mr. Madden, since you're the only one present, you're up.
Yes, we're halfway through the fiscal year, citywide, and we're on par with what we should be. Revenues and expenditures, not only for the administration budget, but for finance and for HR. There's one item, HR wise, that we want to update the committee on. We had open enrollment this past week. That went well. And so we're getting in the swing of things for this upcoming year for insurance. That's all that happened.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Very good. Next item is going to be unfinished business. This will be a pretty short meeting. Ms. Kuznar, you have in your packet, if you'll refer to page 5, this is what we talked about. This came back from council in the last meeting. I asked that we step back so we could, if there were any other tweaks to the standing committee rules, we could do them all at once rather than having multiple filings. Within that, one of the things that Mr. Matt and I have talked about a little bit is ways to shorten some of the committee meetings. Tonight is not an example because we flew through them, but some of the other meetings can sometimes go pretty long, especially when executive sessions are involved. So, Mr. Madden, would you like to kind of talk about what some of the other cities, you and I have talked a little bit about it. It's not in this packet, but we've talked a little bit about some other options to share with us how some of the other municipalities and cities work with.
Yeah, I'll put quickly. So there are other municipalities that address executive sessions. They don't have them on committee meetings, during committee meetings. And if they have a large number of executive sessions that would be prior to a council meeting, would be almost like a committee of the whole, or a special call council meeting, or a meeting before the council meeting, and they will present their information at one time. All the council, no actions will be taken. And then any item that needed to be added before council could be added at that time. So you wouldn't have executive sessions during committee meetings, but you would have the needed for executive session. There'll be no action taken during that meeting. We'll just get a briefing to council, then any item that need action will be placed on the council agenda for that month. So you could mitigate some of the longer committee meetings we've had, due to some of the activities we're having that require executive session. So that is
Right.
That's one option.
I think, and right off the bat, I think the first thought there is making sure we're still flexible. And sometimes things come up quickly, and you want to make sure you maintain some flexibility there with those meetings. I guess, would that be, it's a totally, would it be considered a council called meeting as executive sessions, or was that normally, or would you still break it into committees? What do you normally do?
It would be a council meeting.
Okay, so we would basically just consider dropping executive sessions from the committee business. Okay.
Because we have a large number of committees. And committees be on one day. And if you have 2 or 3 executive sessions, it's gonna be a long meeting. So it's really what the council wants to, how they want to handle it. The team do it this way. It's just that I know I received concern from the council about my own. That is one of the ways to try to make it.
Well, I think Ms. Kuznar, for tonight's purpose, I just wanted to bring that up to talk about it. It'd be something that we would like Ms. King to weigh in on as well, or I would prefer Ms. King weighing in on as well as some other, the mayor and other council members before we made anything that we sent the full council. But what are your thoughts on looking at that as a change as well?
Okay, so I couldn't hear very well. But I think what you're saying is that when we have executive sessions, we could have it on a different night.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it would be better to do that than, if we have a lot of them and then the meetings are going to run really long. Especially if we have people either coming to present for another meeting, and then they have to wait for quite a while. Yeah, I'm open to that.
So that's something we can, like I said, with the next committee meeting, we can have that addressed or have some wording in there, some verbiage in there to consider that for discussion anyways. Again, we'd like Ms. King to weigh in on that. Ms. Kuznar, did you have any other thoughts with the amendments that we had previously looked at?
So the only other thing that I recall was to have the committee meetings in the council chambers. Unless the chair wanted to have it in the committee room. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I was fine with that too.
Okay. Last thing pertaining, at least for discussion, at least at the next council meeting, committee meeting, as we're dealing with this, obviously, we had to do an emergency ordinance to meet virtually, to have the ability to meet and vote virtually. Is that something, Mr. Madden, you can also prepare for us for the next committee meeting as to whether or not we would make that a committee rule change to give some flexibility there? My first blush is I like the idea of frankly, I like the idea of having to do emergency ordinances. It's something that there's a reason that you're doing it, that it's not used to circumvent our duties. And I'm not talking about any of our council members that all take it that way. My thought is, we're currently required to be present. Is that something we want to continue to require? So if we could, Greenville, I know Asheville does one, they're still doing, but I think they have changed their ordinance to allow it. It's outside of the emergency ordinance, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but So if we could discuss that as well. Outside of that, I don't have anything to add to this. We can wait for committee concerns or public comment if there are any members present that would like to weigh in on what we're discussing or doing there. Ms. Kuznar, are you okay with holding this in committee until next committee? Holding you committee till next committee?
I suppose, I mean, are we gonna make more changes or add to, or?
I think that's one of the things I'd like to look at is like I said, the possibility of giving the option for virtual in perpetuity, and then also looking at changing to not allow executive sessions in the committee meetings necessarily, or looking as another option to make the committee meetings more business and less executive sessions.
Well, so if we have 6 committee meetings, but we only have 1 executive session, then I can't see spreading that out over 2 nights. But if we've got 3 or 4 executive sessions and 6 committee meetings, and and the committees have a lot of things on them, and we know that it's going to run long, then I would say yes, just to split that up. As far as virtual, I mean, I know that we're doing it now because of extenuating circumstances, but as far as in the future when we don't have we don't have COVID or something that's preventing everyone from coming, I don't know, because to me it for one thing, it's sometimes hard to hear. And so I think that kind of creates a little bit of an issue just with communication. So I wouldn't want the option of virtual to be a permanent thing, if that's what you're saying.
It is. That's what I'm looking at as options. So I think let's do this. I have not talked to any of my colleagues about that particular option. So I would feel better about talking to some of our colleagues just before we take it to council for one recommendation or another. Let's get some feedback from our colleagues and see if that's something we'd like to move forward with.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We can keep it in committee until next month.
Next item we have, since there's no action taken, next item we have is new business, which there is no new business. We have another item for public comment. We have any public comment?
I thought we would appreciate it.
Yeah. Miss Joanne Chandler?
Yeah, I thought we would appreciate not having executive sessions during the community.
One time that happens, you're in the meeting at 11:30 and.
Oh, I've been more than one at 11:30.
I know.
But it's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler. That's all for public comment. Do we have any committee concerns?
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kuznar, what do I hear on adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Fourth meeting, the time is 7:07 and there are no other committee meetings scheduled for this evening.